The sound that stopped Prince mid-song wasn't a scream or a shout. It was the first voice a mother had ever heard from her daughter in 15 years. But that night in Baltimore, something impossible was about to break through the silence, and 38,000 people would become witnesses to a miracle no doctor could explain. The purple spotlight hit Prince's face as his fingers moved across the keys. Sweat glistened on his forehead. The Royal Farms Arena breathed with him, 38,000 hearts, synchronized to the opening chords of Purple Rain. His voice cut through the darkness like silk tearing slowly, each note carrying weight that only a master could deliver. The crowd swayed. Lighters flickered like stars. Someone in the balcony sobbed. This was church. This was confession. This was Purple Rain. And nobody moved because moving would break the spell. Prince's eyes closed. His head tilted back. The piano keys knew his fingerprints better than he knew his own name. March 2015. Baltimore. Royal Farms Arena. The Hit and Run tour was entering its third month, and Prince was performing with the kind of freedom that only came when he played for cities that understood him. Baltimore always understood him. In row 3, section 104, seat 12, a figure sat completely still while everyone around her moved. Sarah Mitchell, 15 years old, wore a purple shirt her mother had bought 3 sizes too big. The fabric hung loose on her small frame. Her hands rested in her lap, fingers intertwined so tightly her knuckles had gone white. She hadn't moved since the lights went down. While 38,000 people screamed and jumped and sang, Sarah just stared at the stage with an intensity that made the woman next to her uncomfortable. Her mother, Jennifer Mitchell, kept glancing at her daughter between songs. Checking. Always checking. 15 years of checking. 15 years of watching a child who'd never made a sound. The doctors had explained it when Sarah was born. Congenital vocal cord. Paralysis. Complete bilateral. The kind that doesn't improve. The kind that means silence forever. Speech therapy for 12 years had produced nothing. Not a whisper. Not a hum. Nothing. But Jennifer had noticed something in the past few weeks. When Prince's music played in their house, Sarah's breathing changed. Her chest would rise and fall differently. Her throat would move as if something inside was trying to escape. It's muscle memory, the therapist had said. Her body wants to make sound. It just can't. Jennifer had bought these tickets with money she didn't have because Sarah had written one sentence in her notebook. I need to hear him live. At the back of section 104, a shadow moved against the wall. Someone adjusting their position. A silhouette leaning forward. Watching row 3 with an unusual focus. Purple Rain had reached the second verse when Jennifer noticed her daughter's lips moving. Not speaking. Not mouthing words. Something else. Sarah's mouth was open. Slightly. And her throat was trembling. Jennifer had seen this before during therapy sessions. The body trying to produce sound but hitting a wall of silence. It usually lasted 5 seconds before Sarah would give up, frustrated and exhausted. But tonight, Sarah didn't stop. Her whole body was tense. Her hands had unclenched and were now pressed flat against her thighs. Her eyes were locked on Prince, and her mouth kept moving, shaping the melody even though no sound came out. Jennifer touched her daughter's shoulder. Sarah, baby, you okay? Sarah didn't respond, didn't even blink. She was somewhere else entirely. On stage, Prince had moved from the piano to center stage, his guitar now crying through the speakers. He was in that zone where the music played him instead of the other way around. His eyes scanned the crowd during the instrumental break, connecting with faces, reading the room the way only a master performer could. That's when his gaze landed on section 104, row 3. Something in Prince's expression shifted, not dramatically, just a flicker. A micro moment of recognition that something unusual was happening in the third row. But he kept playing. The show must go on. Always. Sarah's mother felt her daughter's shoulder trembling under her hand. The trembling was getting worse. Sarah's breathing had become rapid, almost panicked. Sarah, we can leave if you need to. And then it happened. The sound that came from Sarah Mitchell's throat wasn't a word. It wasn't even close to a word. It was a low, vibrating hum, rough and uncontrolled, like an engine that hadn't been started in 15 years. But it was sound. Jennifer's hand flew to her mouth. Her eyes went wide. Her entire body went rigid with shock. Sarah was making a sound. Her daughter was making a sound. The hum grew slightly louder. Sarah's face contorted with effort. Every muscle in her neck was visible. Straining. Tears started streaming down her face. But she didn't stop. The hum wavered, broke, started again. She was trying to match the melody of Purple Rain. "Oh my God," Jennifer whispered. Then louder, "Oh my God." People around them started noticing. The woman next to Jennifer turned, saw Sarah's face, saw the tears, heard the impossible sound coming from this girl's throat. "Is she okay?" someone asked. Jennifer's voice broke. "She's never made a sound before. Ever. She can't speak. The doctors said she never would." The people in row 3 had gone quiet, then row 2, then row 4. A bubble of silence was forming in section 104, while the rest of the arena sang along to Purple Rain. Sarah's hum grew stronger, still rough, still breaking, but unmistakably there, unmistakably intentional. On stage, Prince had moved back to the piano for the final verse. His fingers found the keys, but something made him look up again. Section 104. Row 3. The woman standing now, hands over her mouth, shoulders shaking. Prince's fingers hesitated on the keys. Just for a second, just long enough for his band to notice. He kept playing, but his eyes stayed on that woman in row 3, on the girl next to her whose whole body was trembling with effort. The hum coming from Sarah was getting louder. People 5 rows back could hear it now. A sound that didn't match the polished perfection of Prince's voice or his band. A sound that was raw and broken and completely, impossibly real. Jennifer couldn't stop crying. 15 years. 15 years of silence. And now this. Here, during Purple Rain, Sarah's hum broke again. But this time, she found it faster. Her throat was learning. Her vocal cords, paralyzed since birth, were remembering something they'd never known. Prince's voice faded on the final line of the verse. The piano continued alone. And in that brief space between verse and chorus, in that moment when 38,000 people held their breath, Sarah Mitchell's hum rang through section 104 like a miracle that had been waiting 15 years to happen. Prince heard it. His hands stopped moving on the keys. The music stopped. 38,000 people went silent. And in that silence, Sarah's hum was the only sound in the entire Royal Farms arena. Prince stood at his piano, one hand still hovering over the keys. The silence in the arena was absolute. 38,000 people frozen in a moment that felt suspended outside of time. Sarah's hum continued, fragile, trembling. But there, what's happening? Prince's voice cut through the silence, gentle, but carrying to every corner of the arena. He was looking directly at section 104 now. Someone in section 104. What's happening down there? Jennifer Mitchell didn't think, didn't plan. She just lifted her arms and waved, tears streaming down her face, unable to speak. Prince squinted against the stage lights. He gestured to his lighting director. "Bring up section 104. I need to see." The house lights rose over section 104. Sarah was illuminated now, her face wet with tears, her throat still working to produce that impossible sound. Her whole body shook with the effort. Jennifer found her voice. It came out as a sob. "My daughter!" she shouted. "She's never spoken. She can't speak. But she's—" Her voice broke completely. "She's making sound." The arena held its breath. Prince stepped away from the piano, slowly, his movements careful, as if approaching something sacred. "What's your daughter's name?" "Sarah. Sarah Mitchell. She's 15 and she was born without." Jennifer couldn't finish. The enormity of what was happening had stolen her words. From the side of the stage, near the monitor board, Sheila E. had been watching the whole thing unfold. She set down her sticks. Her hand went to her chest. She'd played thousands of shows with Prince, but she'd never seen him look like this. Prince's eyes hadn't left section 104. "Sarah," he said, his voice barely above a whisper but carrying through the sound system. "Sarah, I hear you." The hum wavered, broke, then came back stronger. "I hear you, Sarah. 38,000 people began to understand what they were witnessing. Phones stayed in pockets. Nobody moved. This wasn't a moment to record. This was a moment to hold. Prince walked to the very edge of the stage. He knelt down. "Sarah, can you come up here? Can your mom bring you up here?" Jennifer looked at her daughter. Sarah's eyes were wide, terrified, still making that sound that shouldn't exist. "Can you walk, baby?" Jennifer whispered. Sarah nodded. The hum stopped. She stood on shaking legs. Security moved to create a path. The crowd parted silently. Jennifer held Sarah's hand, supporting most of her daughter's weight as they moved toward the stage. Sheila E. watched them approach. She'd seen Prince stop shows before. She'd seen him bring fans on stage. But this was different. The air felt different. Prince's face looked different. She whispered to the sound engineer next to her, "His heart is too big for this world." Have you ever felt a silence so complete it felt like prayer? Drop a comment below. Tell me about the moment that changed everything for you. Sarah Mitchell stood at the base of the stage, looking up at Prince. She was tiny, fragile, shaking so hard Jennifer thought she might collapse. Prince reached down. "I got you," he said softly. "I got you, Sarah." He lifted her onto the stage himself. 38,000 people erupted in applause, but it was different from concert applause. This was reverent, hushed, like applause in a cathedral. Sarah stood center stage. The lights were overwhelming. The crowd was overwhelming. Everything was overwhelming. She started to hyperventilate. Prince moved close. He didn't touch her. He just positioned himself so she could only see him, not the crowd. "Hey, look at me. Just me. Nobody else exists right now. Just you and me and the music." Sarah's breathing slowed slightly. "You made a sound tonight, Sarah. You know what that means?" Prince's voice was so gentle it barely registered through the monitors. "That means your voice has been waiting for the right song. And tonight, it found it." Sarah's eyes filled with tears again. "Can I ask you something?" Prince said. "Do you want to try singing with me? You don't have to. But if you want to, I'll be right here." Sarah looked at her mother in the front row. Jennifer nodded, crying so hard she couldn't see. Sarah looked back at Prince. She nodded. Prince smiled. Not his stage smile. Something real. Something broken. "Okay, we'll go slow. And if you need to stop, you stop. This is your moment, Sarah. Not mine." He walked back to the piano, sat down. His fingers found the keys. The opening notes of Purple Rain began again. Prince started singing. His voice was different now. Softer. More space between the words. Room for Sarah to find her way in. Sarah stood at the center of the stage. Her mouth opened. Nothing came out. She tried again. The crowd waited. Prince kept playing, kept singing, giving her all the time in the world. Sarah's throat worked. Her face contorted with effort. And then, a sound. Rough, broken, barely melodic. But unmistakably attempting to match Prince's voice. Prince's eyes closed. Tears started streaming down his face. He kept playing, kept singing, but his voice was breaking now too. Sarah's sound grew. Not louder, just more sustained. She was finding notes, not the right notes, not even close to the right notes, but notes. The arena was dead silent, except for Prince's piano and Sarah's impossible voice. Prince opened his eyes, looked at Sarah, sang directly to her. "Purple Rain, Purple Rain." Sarah's mouth moved. The sound that came out was just a hum, but it was timed perfectly with the melody. Prince stood from the piano, walked to Sarah, put his hand gently on her shoulder. "You're singing, Sarah," he whispered into his microphone. "You're singing." Sarah's face crumpled. The sound broke, but she didn't stop trying. Prince pulled her into a hug. His shoulders shook. Sarah's whole body shook. 38,000 people watched two people crying on stage while Purple Rain played through the speakers, and nobody knew if this was the saddest or most beautiful thing they'd ever witnessed. Prince held Sarah for a long moment. Then he pulled back, looked at her face. "You know what just happened? You just proved every doctor wrong. You just proved that music doesn't need permission. It just needs a chance." He turned to the audience. "Ladies and gentlemen, this is Sarah Mitchell. Sarah was told she would never make a sound. But tonight, Sarah sang with me. Tonight, Sarah changed what's possible. The standing ovation started slowly, then built, then became something beyond applause. It was celebration. It was witnessing. It was 38,000 people saying, "We saw it. We were here. We believe." Prince walked Sarah to the edge of the stage where her mother waited. He knelt down so he was eye level with both of them. "I want you to promise me something, Sarah," he said. "Promise me you'll keep trying. Keep making sound. Your voice is in there. It's just learning how to come out. Music showed you the door. Now you have to walk through it." Jennifer sobbed. "Thank you, God. Thank you." Prince shook his head. "Don't thank me. Thank Sarah. She did the impossible part." He reached into his pocket, pulled out a guitar pick, purple, of course, worn from hours of use. "This is from my guitar. I've played 1,000 shows with this pick, but it's yours now. When you get frustrated, when therapy is hard, when you want to give up, hold this. And remember that you sang with me. You did that. Nobody can ever take that away from you." Sarah took the pick with shaking hands. She looked at it, looked at Prince. Her mouth opened. Everyone thought she was trying to speak, but instead, she hummed. One clear note, sustained for 3 full seconds. Prince broke down again. He touched his forehead to Sarah's. "That's it. That's exactly it." From stage left, Sheila E. had moved closer. She was crying openly now, not bothering to hide it. When Prince stood and turned, he saw her. She walked over, looked at Sarah, looked at Prince. "This is why," she said, her voice thick with emotion. "This is why his heart is so big it doesn't fit in his chest. This is why he stops in the middle of shows. This is why he pays attention when everyone else would look away." She turned to the audience, to the cameras that had started rolling the moment Prince stopped the show. "You want to know who Prince is? This is who he is. Not the hits, not the awards. This little girl who just sang when doctors said she never would. That's what he sees. That's what he's always seen. The impossible becoming possible because someone finally paid attention." Prince helped Sarah down from the stage. Security escorted her and Jennifer back to their seats. But this time, they weren't in row 3. They were front row, center, Prince's personal guests for the rest of the show. Prince finished the concert, but everything had changed. Every song felt different. The audience sang differently. The energy in the arena had transformed into something sacred. When he played Purple Rain again at the end of the show, the entire arena sang it quietly, gently, like a lullaby for Sarah Mitchell, who stood in the front row, still making small sounds, still trying, still breaking 15 years of silence, one note at a time. After the show, Prince spent an hour with the Mitchell family. No cameras, no press, just a musician and a girl who'd found her voice in his song. "I'm going to check on you," he told Jennifer. "I'm going to make sure she gets the therapy she needs. The best therapists. Whatever it costs." Jennifer tried to protest. Prince held up his hand. "Music connected us tonight. That makes her my responsibility now. That's how this works." What happened next became the part of the story that proved music could literally change brain chemistry. Sarah Mitchell began intensive speech therapy the following week. Prince paid for everything. The best specialists in the country. Neurologists who studied her case and found that the emotional intensity of that night had somehow created new neural pathways. Her vocal cords hadn't healed. They couldn't heal. But her brain had found a different way to produce sound. "It's unprecedented," Dr. Rebecca Morris, Sarah's neurologist, said in a later interview. "The combination of emotional intensity, musical stimulus, and sheer determination created something we can't fully explain." Sarah's brain rewired itself. 6 months after that Baltimore concert, Sarah Mitchell spoke her first word, purple. By her 16th birthday, she was speaking in full sentences. Slow, careful, but speaking. Prince called her every month, checked her progress, sent her recordings of new songs to practice with. He never publicized any of it. This wasn't about image. This was about a promise he'd made to a girl who taught him that miracles don't need permission. When Prince died in April 2016, Sarah spoke at his memorial service at Paisley Park. Her voice was still rough, still required effort, but it was there. "Prince gave me my voice," she said, crying but not stopping. "But more than that, he taught me that the impossible is just the possible waiting for someone to pay attention. He paid attention to me when I was just another face in the crowd. He stopped his show. He stopped everything. Because he believed my voice mattered." She held up the purple guitar pick he'd given her that night. "I hold this every day. And I remember that once, in Baltimore, a girl who couldn't speak sang with Prince, and 38,000 people witnessed a miracle that doctors said couldn't happen." She paused, took a breath. "Music doesn't need permission. It just needs a chance." Today, Sarah Mitchell is a speech therapist who specializes in working with children who have vocal cord paralysis. She uses music therapy in ways that traditional medicine never considered. Her success rate is unprecedented. "Prince showed me the door," she tells her students. "Now I'm showing you. Your voice is in there. It's just learning how to come out." In her office, framed on the wall, is a purple guitar pick and a photo from that Baltimore night. Prince kneeling on stage, Sarah crying, 38,000 people standing witness to the impossible. The photo's caption, written in Sarah's careful handwriting, reads, "The night silence, learn to sing. Real legends don't just perform, they transform." If this story reminded you why music matters more than fame, share it with someone who needs to remember that miracles are just moments waiting for someone to pay attention. What's the song that changed your life? Drop it in the comments. And remember, your voice matters, even when the world says it doesn't. Especially then. Because sometimes, the most powerful thing we can do is stop everything and listen to the sound that shouldn't exist. The sound of impossible becoming possible, one note at a time.